BBC iPlayer is now home to 800 episodes of Doctor Who. That's scary. Where to start? We've got you covered. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully so. But where did you start?
I started with the revival back in 2005. My dad said, hey, there's a show I watched as a kid called Doctor Who. You might like it. So sat down 26th of March 2005 and started with Rose. And yeah, what a wonderful jumping on point that was.
I mean, my earliest memory is a couple of weeks later than that, just walking downstairs towards the end of Dalek, which my mum and dad were watching at the time. And yeah, I distinctly remember, the Dalek opening up and then sealing itself off again, rising up and self-destructing. Like, that is a strong early memory of Doctor Who for me. And yeah, as for the first full episode, I imagine I went back to Rose after that, but I'm honestly not sure. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't join them next week for the long game. I don't know quite where I went from there. But I do know that with Classic Who, I went for Frontier in Space. Well, I say went for. It was more the case of my dad already had that on VHS, so it seemed the right place to start, really. And also add a Dalek there on the cover, or the silhouette of a Dalek, so that instantly grabbed me. And certainly the knowledge that they were coming at the end of part 6 pushed me through that story. But what about you? Where did you start with the classic series?
I started by my mum giving me this DVD called Genesis of the Daleks with the sticker
Oh, I've not
on.
heard of that one.
No, it's quite a lesser known one. It did have a sticker saying #1 story of all time. Don't think it's that anymore.
Wonder who voted for that.
Yeah, I wonder.
Bunch of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that was a nice little gateway because we just had school reunion on. So Sarah Jane had been. No, so it was interesting to see her travels with the Doctor and see the genesis of how Doctor's most popular monster came to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a strong jumping on point. I also remember my first DVD being the Dalek Invasion of Earth. And that was quite exciting because you had the same Dalek sources as you do in the new series on the cover there.
Yeah.
But then I never quite got around to watching the updated special effects, funnily enough. But for whatever reason, just the cheaper charm of those original effects worked for me even back then. And that was fascinating because that's a very different kind of Doctor Who to what I was used to.
Yes.
With this older Doctor, this whole crew of companions. So yeah, that was always rather fascinating for me. But yeah, certainly, if you are coming to this video and have never seen any Doctor Who before, surprisingly, and you're wondering where to start now that it's all on iPlayer, maybe, you're jumping on board for the 60th, maybe you're a Sex Education fan who is looking forward to Ncuti Gatwa's first series as a Doctor, and you want to do a bit of homework first. I mean, probably the place that will pop up first on iPlayer is An Unearthly Child, isn't it? That's the most obvious starting point, but also, the ones to
please don't
avoid, because it's just a very different breed of television in back then, isn't it? And
it's a very different show. It's Doctor Who, but it's not.
And yeah, also it's just not representative of Doctor Who at its best. And I think Doctor Who is a wonderful show that you can dip in and out of at any time. And I think to really appreciate An Unearthly Child, you need to have some appreciation for Doctor Who as a whole before you can quite dive into that one. So instead, as we say, you are this hypothetical Sex Education fan who wants to do a bit of homework before Ncuti Gatwa arrives. Rose would be an ideal place to start for you, my friend.
It's the best, probably the best jumping on point. Really, you get a flavour of the head writer, Rusty Davis, what he brings, the sort of kitchen sink drama aspect to it, but also sort of the wonder of the Doctor.
That is very much on full display here. And it's nice that you're getting to know about him through Rose's eyes, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
This is very much her story. It's following her point of view throughout as we learn about this mysterious traveler in time and space and what he does for a living. Just, saving the world, blowing up one shop at a time.
Exactly. Get your beans on toast.
Wonderful stuff. Similar to Rose is Spearhead from Space. If you're a new Who fan who is now looking to jump onto classic Who, since a lot of it has come to iPlayer now, Spearhead from Space would be a good one, I think, because it does follow a similar format to Rose, really, in that, you're introduced to the Autons, and, you've got this very down-to-earth story. The Doctor's been exiled to Earth, and, it feels like a very strong jumping-on point. First story in colour as well.
So I think that's naturally sort of a jumping on point if you're scared of black and white. It's the most beautiful looking classic story because it's filmed on HD and film, so you can get it in
it's
HD.
It's shot on film, so it translates wonderfully there. But it's almost a bad place to start because of that, because it almost sets up this false expectation of what the rest of classic Who is going to look like, sadly. So unfortunately, it does go back to videotape after that, and you've got your studio work there where it's done in multi-camera format, so it's never going to quite look as good as this, sadly, but enjoy it while it lasts.
It's a cracker.
It's a wonderfully produced, this one. It does very much feel like a film.
Yes, it's this little movie. Speaking of movies, when you're ready for black and white Doctor Who, Tomb of the Cybermen, it's got this sort of Egyptian mommy Sunday afternoon feel to it.
Yes, it does. You're off with this archaeological crew who are digging up what is the last remains of the Cybermen, but they're not quite as dormant as they are first led to believe. And I mean, certainly a scary one for younger viewers, I feel. I was certainly scared of this one growing up.
And it's one of our Doctor's favourite stories, Matt Smith. It was one of his first classic stories he watched, and very much inspired his Doctor from Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, you can very much trace a line there between those two, can't you? Like, not just with the bow tie and everything, and some of the mannerisms as well.
I mean, speaking of Matt Smith, 11th Hour, another perfect jumping on point. The first sort of soft reboot in the new series.
Yeah, it was Stephen Moffat's first episode as showrunner, and he certainly hits the ground running with this, doesn't he?
Yes, it's a punchy hour-long story. You get all the mechanics of what makes Doctor Who brilliant in this wonderful, whimsical fairy tale. And Series 5 just carries on that sort of adventure and fairy tale nature of the show.
There's good momentum there to be carried through after 11th Hour. And, it is more or less a soft reboot, isn't it? Because you've got a whole new cast there for this one with Amy and Rory at the Doctor's side for the first time. And Karen Gillan has gone on to have a very successful career post Doctor Who. So if you've followed any of that, it'd be interesting to see where she started here, or one of her earlier jobs. If you really want to see where she started with Doctor Who, you've got Fires of Pompeii. Funnily enough. But here you have this wonderful story that again shows off the differences in approach instantly between Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies, because the Doctor is much more front and center in this one. It's all told more from his point of view than Amy's, but you have Amy viewing him as more of this fairy tale figure, and it certainly sets up that difference well between a more kitchen sink domestic dynamic that Russell set up with Rose. So that's a fascinating contrast there between those two, but both rather equally strong places to start with the show.
If you're not ready to properly dive into the back catalogue of classic Doctor Who, I think a perfect recommendation is Remembrance of the Daleks. It's sort of classic television, but with a sort of modern sensibility of pacing in terms of story.
I mean, it's one of the later Classic Who stories. It's from 88, 1 year before the show ended. But there's no signs of this being a show, coming to its end. Quite the opposite. It has renewed life with this story. And it's an action movie, isn't it? There's
explosions, Daleks blowing up left, right, and centre, and this one big game being played by the Doctor.
And I mean, certainly some adult themes in there as well to be appreciated, in how, the rise of fascism plays into this, and how that's contrasted with the Daleks and their xenophobic nature. So, yeah, definitely a strong place to start with Remembrance. But if you want to get a flavour for more than one Doctor, there's the 5 Doctors. You got 5-ish Doctors in there. You have a recast First Doctor and a 4th Doctor already appearing through archival footage. But nevertheless, it's a strong anniversary story. We're coming up to the 60th anniversary as well, so it seems only right that that'd be a fun jumping on point, and it gives you a flavour for a bunch of Doctors and companions.
It's a love letter to classic Doctor Who of the first 20 years, really.
Okay, another place that would be good to start and interesting to start for new Who viewers who know of Sarah Jane Smith. Her first story, The Time Warrior. Also, the first Sontaran story.
Yes, one of the key villains and monsters of Doctor Who. It's a nice sort of pseudo-historical story. Great sort of classic Who moment, cliffhanger reveals. It's a nice sort of staple of classic Doctor Who, I would say.
Yeah, and a strong start for Sarah as well. She has a lot of agency in that story. She's a reporter looking for a story and ends up probably biting off more than she can chew. But certainly, she's not there just to get bossed around and take orders from a Doctor. She stands up to him quite a bit. And I think there's a wonderful interplay between them. I think it's underappreciated, the dynamic between John Pertwee and Elizabeth Sladen. It's wonderful how he's able to tease her throughout that. And I think wonderful sets as well with this one. They really recreate the Middle Ages well.
Yeah, it's nice to see sort of how one of the iconic classic companions began. So it's an important story, I would say.
Another iconic staple of Doctor Who would be the Time Lords. And the first time the Doctor runs into another one of his race would be all the way back in 1965 with the Time Meddler. So this is a first Doctor story that I think does work as a good little jumping on point when you're ready to dive into his Doctor. And a wonderful little pseudo-historical as the monk, this very entertaining character. It's quite a comedic story. But has serious moments, is trying to rewrite history and change the outcome of the Battle of Hastings. So, it's just wonderful. Breezes past fairly quickly. It's a 4-parter, so it's not too much of a commitment. But, I think a worthy place to start if you've not watched any First Doctor stories before.
It captures the more fun nature of the First Doctor, because I think people perceive him as a grumpy old man. But I think this really captures the fun and twinkle, but also the stern authority figure that the First Doctor is.
Yeah, because he's up against someone who, is playing fast and loose with the rules of time travel. So he's got to put his foot down there and be a bit more stern. But he does have his nice whimsical and fun moments as well, interacting with the monk and other characters too. 1066!
Indeed.
Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, those are some of our sort of quick fire recommendations on where we think would be a nice little place to sort of dive in. Obviously, do Rose first. I think that's the best place. I mean, for me anyway, it got me down this rabbit hole. So I think that's one I can wholeheartedly say that's the place to start.
Yeah. And again, if you are someone who is familiar with New Who, but now that Classic Who's on iPlayer, you're looking to start there. Skip an Unearthly Child for now. Maybe Spearhead in Space could be your friend instead.
So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe because it really does help us out. And we'll be back for more Doctor Who shenanigans in the future.
Yes, hopefully this video has been useful to you, and feel free to share your own thoughts and recommendations down below. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.